Hi everybody and welcome to the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and with Darragh MacAnthony, chairman and co-owner of Peterborough United. And Darragh, you just got back from a flight to the US. You've been in the UK for the last few weeks. So jet-lagged, but also feeling some freedom.
I'm so hungover, Phil, this morning. I'd said it on my Twitter account yesterday. And some people have no sense of humor. It's like, chairman shouldn't be tweeting. I said I was obviously going to, get very drunk, have lots of sex. Christ, that's called living, by the way. People who get so upset by that shit, it always just baffles me. I'll never ever change. That's who I am. It's my personality. But yeah, flew home on Sunday, went through Miami, because obviously there's no direct flights anymore. Really, really easy, Airport's very quiet. You're wearing a mask for 9 hours. Helps when you're in first class and you got a bed to lie in. But, everyone doing what they got to do. This is living through COVID. This is living with COVID. We can't. I keep telling people, I have skin in the game. I can't afford to sit on my couch at home. I have to travel around the world and do business, and that's just the way it goes. I don't get the choice of the people who want to criticize where they're sitting at home getting paid. It doesn't work for me that way. So I have to be in the UK for football. I have to be in other areas of the world for other businesses. And I haven't seen my family for 5 weeks. And Phil, when I touched down finally, and I went to Miami and then flew down from Miami to Orlando Monday morning. But when I landed in Miami, I was staying in an airport hotel. It was like a one-star flea pit, where you can hear everyone through the walls and, the sheets are dirty. But mentally, I was saying to my wife, I checked into the hotel, and next to the hotel was a sports bar.
Yeah.
And there was all these people sat at the bar. There was people with pitchers of beer. My mental state of mind changed just in that moment. It was really weird. I've been like everyone else in the UK, locked up in England, went there for Christmas, pretty much 8 weeks, left my house 6 times for football only. And mentally, I was at a very low ebb. I don't often admit that, but I was. And getting to Miami, not even seeing my family yet, I had a mental lift. I felt, I don't know how to describe it. Something went off in my brain where I just felt happy. I almost wanted to join those people with the pitchers of beer because I'm drinking 5 weeks. But, and look, again, everyone thinks you're a COVID lunatic, but I'm wearing my mask. I'm doing all the things you're meant to do. I'm getting in elevators on my own. You're doing things as best you can, but I have to get on with living, right? Not live to the best of my ability. I flew down the next day, got home. My wife picked me up. Saw my children when I got home from school because they've been back in school, and caught up with them, and just taking everything in around me, and it's been great. 24 hours. Obviously, I'm very drunk last night, where I crawled out of the kitchen where I was like 15 beers with my wife, and she was up at 5:30 getting the kids to school this morning and feeling rotten. And obviously, I got up at I think 8 o'clock because obviously we had this podcast to record. Are you recording a podcast? I'm like, listen, I'm a professional.
Here's me thinking that you'll be fine because you'll be jet lagged and awake at 5 a.m.
Back in the day when I used to sell real estate and timeshare when I was a teenager, I'd party all night, put my suit on after an hour sleep in my car, and I'd go out and sell. So I've always said, you play hard, you work hard, so no problem for me. And back on the horse, and it was nice. It was really nice, and just to feel, what's the word? Reinvigorated, being home. And it's Florida's like the last stand. Said to my wife last night, well, everyone else has got contracting backwards. 11 months later in COVID, and countries are still locking down, and countries are still keeping children from school, and even with vaccines, the news just wants to report shit after shit after shit, and assholes on TV who've got TV ratings going through the roof because of COVID really don't want this to end. So they want to just push their narrative. So Florida feels like the last stand, and I'm now loving living here, and I never really always loved living here, but it does feel like the last stand. And you live here, and we're very different politically, but there's nowhere else I'd rather be at the moment than America, and Florida just gives you everything you want, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of reflect on, I think about what we've done the last week or so. So, we went and stayed for the night at a Disney property hotel, which is just down the road from us, so we could hang out at the pool. And yes, lots of other people doing it, but everyone's keeping their distance and keeping safe. And the thing is, I don't feel unsafe. I mean, I think that we've talked a lot about personal responsibility and all that kind of stuff, but I have the option to go out and do stuff still. And as long as we feel as though we're protecting ourselves as we do that, then, you've still got to live your life. And so that's just what we're trying to do. And at least here in Florida, we have the ability to do that.
Absolutely. And what I'll do is tomorrow, I'm on breakfast with my missus tomorrow. Wednesday's always our day. And then I'm going to go do an instant test down at there's like a drive-through place. So I'm having a coffee with my dad on Thursday. So, and that's how I do things. Just like when I go to the club, the football club, I do an instant test. I'm not this reckless guy running around, you know what I mean, hugging people and doing whatever. But that's the best we can do, right?
Yeah.
Is, test and do whatever you got to do. And I said to my dad, because he's got a second shot of the vaccine, he's like, he's coming up for the Super Bowl on Sunday, and he's like, is it all right if I hug the kids? I said, fuck yeah. Because what's the point in having a vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been fully vaccinated. So if you're telling me now the world's saying even after fully vaccination, don't go hugging young people or don't whatever, but that's the whole point. And I get people with a vaccine can still possibly spread it, can do whatever, but it's 96% efficacy, which means you now know the statistics. So I said to my dad, hug my children, live, because that's what you're meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're fully vaccinated. Okay, still do your things cleverly, but you know what? You have to live. You cannot anymore shelter in place that. You're now know the statistics with the vaccine, you've taken it. We have to get back to that place. That's enough about COVID anyway, because obviously people in the UK are still there and listening to this, and they don't have the choice to jump in an airplane to the freedom of Florida. And I feel for them. And that'll go on for as long as everyone in the UK allows it to go on,
Mm-hmm.
Which has gone on too long already. But I'm just happy to be in Florida. And with everything going on in the rest of the world, this is the place to be.
Well, let's talk football, and I wish that it was a happy story for you this weekend, but you lost to Shrewsbury. I think it was 2-0, and I saw that you were pretty critical of the team. I think of the performance on social. Talk me through what happened.
Yeah, look, the team always know, and the manager always knows. I'm always very honest. I'll always give great praise and credit where it's due, but occasionally I'll give critique and criticism, and we weren't good. I called it the no-show. And a few Shrewsbury fans took exception with me saying, for us to win promotion, we have to go to places like that and win. That wasn't a dig at Shrewsbury. But when you're playing 17th in League One, and that's where they were at the time, or you're playing fourth bottom or third bottom like Bristol Rovers, you have to win those matches. It's great for the top teams. You have to be ruthless against the team struggling. And Shrewsbury, albeit Shrewsbury have got a phenomenal record under Cottrell against the top four teams. They haven't conceded a goal, and I think won all the games. It doesn't matter. If Shrewsbury were going for promotion and they were failing to win at Peterborough United when we were struggling, they would feel exactly the same. That wasn't a dig at them, because they're a good football club. We just didn't show up. We were very lethargic. We can blame all the games, the running games. We played Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Shrewsbury obviously didn't have a midweek game, so they were fresher than us. There was no doubt about it. They had more energy. But I felt their game plan was better than us. Regardless of whether or not we were both fresh, I thought their game plan was better. They executed it better. They knew how to handle us. They knew how to put us in certain scenarios to stop our best play. They play with three big centre halves. Our target man was never going to be able to win that matchup all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It needed to be the balls down the channels, the balls in behind for the little nippy players like Dembele. We didn't do that. We had 3 crosses the whole game. Crosses is a big part of scoring goals. Our better players weren't on it. Our front three weren't on it. Defensively, where we've been strong, we weren't. Another goal conceded from outside the box. Again, that's too many this season for a team. Statistically like us, we've conceded, I think, the most goals from outside the box. That's not good enough. So, of course, I was critical. Of course, I was giving it straight. But the one thing I know about our players is they're an honest bunch. They'll take it like it's meant. They won't sulk. And they have to bounce back. We have a tough game today. We're in the quarterfinals away at Tranmere. I think the gaffer has pretty much changed the whole team, so a lot of the younger players will play. But we go again on Saturday, and then Tuesday and Saturday. And if you want to win, last night people were digging me up because they said, who do you think is going to win promotion? And I named Hull and Portsmouth, and one other. It's easy to go, we're going to win promotion. Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to be that arrogant and conceited, because that's not right either.
Well, you've been pretty consistent in talking about Hull and Portsmouth as well all season.
I have, and I've always expected them 2 clubs to be up there to win promotion. I obviously meant the third team would be us. They're saying it, but people are like, oh, you don't even believe in your own team. Of course I believe in my own team. If I'm writing checks, I believe in my own team. And as bad as Saturday was, sometimes fans can have an overreaction. Mine wasn't an overreaction. Mine was just highlighting that's not good enough away from home.
Mm-hmm.
A team that's third in League One trying to win promotion. That was my point. I'm not slaughtering the player, slaughtering the manager. A few of the fans are digging in and the usual, which is always the way, posh 1 result or 2 results or whatever else.
I don't think it's just posh.
Yes, maybe. So I don't know, you know what I mean? But look, hopefully they'll get back on a horse and get going again. We need runs of 4 or 5 wins for every loss. So that's what you need. You're going to lose games in this league. Everyone's beating everyone. Hull got beaten by, I think, Accrington Stanley last week, and Accrington Stanley are showing they're a good team. So as long as we win 3-4 in the spin, I don't care for the odd shit result. If we do that until the end of the season, we'll win promotion.
Yeah, every even promotion teams have these blips, and that's what it's got to be. You got to show it's just a blip.
Absolutely. So bad day at the office, a bad away day. One thing we have to do is win at home. So that's what you got to do. You dig in. Everyone wants to talk about, well, we got lucky against Ipswich. We drew 0-0 against Bristol. No, we had 20 shots against Bristol. It was one of them days. Do we get lucky against Ipswich? Okay, we weren't at our best, but we grinded out a 1-0 win.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the shake-up probably. So it wasn't that bad. It was a good result. So, and then we had a shit result against Shrewsbury. Okay, it's the way it is. But really, Shrewsbury had 2-3 chances the whole game and scored 2 of them. As bad as we were, we didn't get fucking mullered. It was just a bad day at the office. By the way, our target man missed an absolute sitter header-wise to equalise in the game. Dembele went in 1-on-1 after 2 minutes. Those small margins.
Yeah, those change games.
They change games. And in a promotion race, they're the margins you want your big players to capitalise on. So it is what it is. You know what I mean?
We had transfer deadline day as well. And so you had, I think you said it was for the first time in your chairmanship that you didn't bring anybody in. And I know that, there's been some clamour again on social, I think is a nice way of putting it, for signings to come in the transfer window. So, what's the thinking behind your action or lack of action this time around?
Well, it's driven by the manager as well, because as ownership, we're always very supportive of what the manager wants. Look, we had 3 or 4 options there drawn up that the manager and me had worked on. And if you wanted to pull the trigger, we would have signed them. Even yesterday, when I was on the tram from Miami to Orlando, after landing, I was on the tram from Orlando back to the main airport. I was on the phone to Barry going, does the gaffer want option this and option B and whatever, and he was like, no, I've spoke to him, he doesn't want it. So I texted the manager, he was like, no, we're good, we're fine. So I think what it is we did a lot of work with a salary cap and doing the business in the summer. We spent a lot of money in the summer. People get that. We're the biggest spenders in League One. Spent millions, brought in some very good players in the summer, built a squad where we had 2 players for every position. We still have 2 players for every position. In some cases, we had 3 or 4. So, for example, we let Broom and Tasdeemer go. Tasdeemer is a 10, Broom is a 10. When we signed Broom, it was because we didn't think we were getting Sammy Schmoddix. And 3 days after we signed Broom, I managed to get the Schmoddix deal alive again. And then it was, do we get greedy and still get Schmoddix? So there's no disrespect to Broom, but Flynn Clark was always going to be that backup 10, because we have that policy with our younger players, that 1 for 1. So you got striker, backup will be a younger. That's who we are now as a club with our academy. That's who we want to be. Fans are going to have to get on board with that. So letting Ryan go and Tasdeemer go, we still have Flynn and Sammy for the 10. The only area we were looking at possibly was central midfield. If Louis Reid had a couple of clubs wanted him, if he'd moved on, we would have got one in there, because we have 4 in there. But if you go across the actual from the wing backs to the centre backs to the central mid to the everyone's going on about strikers. Well, that club signed this player, but we've got Johnson Clark Harris, we got Mo Isa, who's a £1 million striker who scored 15 league goals last year. He's in the top 5 goal scorers. Mo hasn't had a run. People are digging him out. He's still a prolific goal scorer at our level. I think he's going to come into it towards the end of the season. He's going to be very, very useful. Behind that, we have Ricky J. Jones, who's the best teenage striker we've probably had in a generation of people, who was injured at the start of the season and is now getting up to fitness. Hasn't really started any games. He's going to start tonight. And again, we have massive belief in that kid to be special. So why would we bring someone in and put him 4th or 5th down?
Yeah, you got to give him the chance to start to prove himself.
Yeah, and then we have Dembele as part of the way we play the striker quartet. So we could have easily brought another striker in. But again, we're punishing the club for trying to do the right things. And we as a club want to have, and it's credit to Jason, my partner, who wants to have a thriving academy. What message does it send to our academy? Just keep bringing in loan signings from the Premier League. And that's what a lot of it was yesterday, was loan signings. There was no one really spending money. It was loan signing after loan signing. We could have brought someone from Man City in, from, whatever club in. There was no point, because A, we're not big into the loans unless we can bring a permanent in. And B, that depth of talent we have of youngsters. And by the way, in our under-18 team, which is top of the league again, they won the league last year. And they're about to hopefully win the league again. They won today 2-1 against MK Dons. So in that team, there's another 2 strikers we've just given pre-pro deals to. One 16, Portuguese lad who we've been offered £750,000 by Premier League clubs. The other one is somebody we signed recently who's, again, he's a big guy, kind of more of a, not a target man, but a very sturdy striker.
Mm-hmm.
He's 60, he's 17, or just one's 15, one's 17. They both have a chance, a big chance, and we see great things in them. So again, back in the academy, wanting to do the right things as a football club, is that's who we want to be. We have ideas for the summer. It wasn't a good idea to try and bring them forward into January. Do you know what I mean? It was, again, settling players in and getting them up to speed. And it just, for me, for the club, and I was glad the manager agreed, but I left that option with him. If he'd said, Chairman, find those two players, we would have done it all day long. Time will tell if we were right. Everyone always wants to think the grass is greener and looks to your rivals and what they brought in and envious and everything else. But I'm sure a lot of them were envious when we signed who we signed in the summer.
Right. Like you said, you spent a lot of money in the summer, and there's something to be said for having a settled squad.
Correct.
When we talked about Bradford, bringing in 9 players, you've and now got to embed all those into the squad. You set out from the start of the season to do something. There's nothing that's changing your mind that you're on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look, and you speak about Bradford. Obviously, they've a very good window. They've actually spent money.
Yeah, a few deals.
Good deals, good signings.
Well, I mean, I think time will tell. So as a supporter, it's funny, given the discussion that we just had, I think that there was definitely a clamour for a bit of a remake of the squad because, where was that squad in the middle of December? It was second bottom and not looking very good. Like we couldn't buy a goal even.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that just from then we've remade, I looked at the teams. There's only 5 starters from the middle of December that are still involved. But for the players we brought in, we brought 9 in. And honestly, I don't know a ton about most of them. And so I think there's a little bit of the grass is greener and you don't know until they actually get the boots on and start playing.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit reserved until I see them play. But I think we're in a much better position. I think that you ask any Bradford fan right now and they'll say it's a successful window.
Brilliant. Well, that's all you can hope for. So you're in great form. So long may that continue.
Yeah, 8 unbeaten now since the middle of December. So again, some tricky games coming up. We've got Exeter away on Saturday, which is always a tough place for us to go to.
Yeah, unbeaten. All the disappointment with us on Saturday, we were 9 unbeaten going into it.
You kind of forget about that and you only focus on the last result, don't you?
It's in the window, but it's the halfway point of the season was our best start in a decade. Again, and that's forgotten because everyone wants signings. So, let's you trust your Bradford team. Let them get on with it and see if that trust is well earned. And I trust my manager, my team. And I guess, we'll know by the end of the season if we were right or wrong. And that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, so looking further afield, and we've talked a lot about Liverpool and their centre-half problem. And you brought in a couple, I think, yesterday, one from the Championship, which raised a few eyebrows.
I have to give credit to the ownership. They obviously haven't got the money. So what they did was they went about their business in a very clever way. I think they spent in total £2 million yesterday and brought in the backs. The German boy, obviously, they've got an option to sign him for 20 million in the summer. So it's a no-brainer for a Premier League club to spend $1 million loan fee and the way it's no-brainer. So they can analyse and watch him. He can't be any worse than the kids that have come in. He's got to be better. He's played in I think it's Schalke or whatever.
Yeah, Schalke, yeah.
He's obviously they're not done well this season, but he's played a lot of football. Wagner was there, who obviously his old assistant. So they know what they're getting with that kid. Klopp will improve him. If he is good, they'll sign him for 18 million, which is a bargain in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
The Davies one for me is a no-brainer. I love that bit of business because that was a throwback to the 80s when Liverpool would go and sign a Rob Jones from Crewe or a John Aldridge from Oxford or, whatever else. That was the way it used to be, where top clubs would dip into the pyramid and buy some of the English talent. And Ben Davies, even though he's 25, he's a phenomenal centre-back.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will slot in seamlessly next to Fabinho. I think that could be an absolute masterstroke. Now, it's going to take him time to adapt. When I say adapt, I'm not worried about adapting to the Premier League. It'll be Liverpool's style of play. It might be different from Preston's.
Yeah.
It's moving from, even though Preston's not that far from Liverpool.
It's like intensity.
Yeah, the intensity, the Klopp whole thing, I think that's a phenomenal signing. And even if he plays 10 times and say Klopp doesn't want him next season, they'll turn him into a £10 million sale to a Southampton next year or to another club. So they'll make a profit. Preston get a big sell on. He was going to go to Celtic. They were going to get nothing. I think credit to Ridsdale. It's a hell of a deal for Preston. I'm amazed nobody had bought him before. He's been around for a while. He's one of the best centre-backs in the Championship. And yeah, for me, win-win by Fenway. They're obviously struggling. They don't want to spend big money. And the recruitment guy, is a Kennedy, who does all the recruitment deals. I can't remember his name now. This is my hangover. He's done a great job yesterday. And I think, they're starting to find their groove again. I watched the West Ham game on Peacock from the airport in Miami. I was able to play it back and watch the West Ham game. They're starting to look interesting again. So I still think Man City will win the title by 10 points.
Well, it's looking like they're starting to... there's a bit of a gap opening up there now, isn't there?
There is a gap, yeah. But I think Liverpool now will comfortably be in the top 3, Champions League money. And then obviously they're going to have to do a bit of business in the summer with an aging front 3. So full confidence in it. There's going to be a little bit of microsurgery on the Liverpool side in the summer, but it now allows Henderson or Fabinho to potentially go back into midfield. So I'm a lot happier as a Liverpool fan. It was a really quiet win. Minamino went to Southampton. That's the right move. Mm-hmm. He's not good enough to be a Liverpool player, but if he does well at Southampton, they'll be able to get 10, 12 million up for him and make a profit on what they paid, 7. It was a quiet window. A few deals were done. I think King went from Bournemouth last minute. Everton. There was no big standout transfers. It was like loan city. There was more loans done, but that is just, systematic of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. And that's another thing Posh fans and everyone else has to realise is that, clubs are still struggling with no income. So it's very, very difficult to constantly go out and do business and spend money and spend money and spend money. So this is the way it is until the UK and other places, get over their lockdown, their love of lockdown, and let people try and live and get back to some sort of normality.
Yeah, you think that everyone's kind of keeping the powder dry for the summer?
I don't think there'll be a lot done in the summer.
No.
I think there'll be a lot more domestic business done in the summer. I don't think the transfer window will be back to I know there was $1 billion spent last summer. That was because people were optimistic about, crowds would be back and everything. And
yeah.
I don't think people trust the British government anymore, particularly in football, and I don't trust them, whereby you're thinking you're getting your fans back. Because in any, there'll be a few cases of COVID in the winter and it'll be like, shut everyone fucking up again. So no one wants to spend money while they don't trust that government.
Yeah.
And that'll be a big problem. And I think the window, no way will £1 billion be spent in the summer in the window. No chance.
Now, we've talked a little bit about Spurs on the pod and, what your feelings, what you think about Jose and them going well, and it's kind of unraveling a little bit.
Yeah, unraveling in that when they played Liverpool, they were unbeaten in 9 or whatever it was. And obviously they had a bad result against Brighton. 2 results don't mean unraveling. But I understand as, a typical football fan, it's unraveling. Look, Kane's out. Bale hasn't come off. REA was obviously fighting and arguing he's out of the squad. Dele Alli wanted to go to PSG. It's Mourinho's biggest job because he has to prove his critics wrong. Where, typical Mourinho style, everyone's expecting to spontaneously combust, get fired, Levy moves on. Jose's got to dig in and show that he's not a dinosaur. He's got to, reach deep down now, get them going again, get the best out of Bale, get the best out of the replacements till Kane comes back. Ignore the critics. Don't get grumpy in press conferences and just get back to winning. I still think Spurs have one of the best squads, and I still think they've got a very good chance of finishing top 4.
Now, what do you make of the Dele Alli situation? So you have basically a player and a manager that both sanctioned the deal, and the chairman said no. Where does that leave the player?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't know what Levy was doing there. Maybe he was worried about, if Ali goes there, if he doesn't play, then he loses more value. Maybe he wanted, PSG to write him a check for 30 million. I don't know, but as a player and your manager, it's not healthy. It's not good. The best thing to do, like we had Tasdeemer who went to Oldham and I never do business with Oldham, and people are like, why did you let him go? Because the player wanted to be near his home. His family are up that way. And, there were a couple of other potential moves, but really for a 20-year-old youngster in a pandemic and, training and going home every day on your own, sometimes the best thing for their mental health is to help geographically. I don't know where Dele Alli is mentally with it all. I'm surprised Jose hasn't been able to get the best out of him. He just doesn't suit the way Jose plays. So yeah, it'd be an interesting one, but I would expect a deal to be done and him to be sold in the summer at the Pochettino.
It seems like it's only a matter of time, doesn't it?
Correct. That deal will get done, and Leeds, what a great win against Leicester, by the way.
Right. That was kind of unexpected.
Jekyll and Hyde. At the end of the day, that's Leeds for you. They're going to pick off teams. They're going to beat some good teams. I still think they're going to beat some of the top teams as well before the season's over. So, because those top teams will allow them to play because they'll want to play. So, that doesn't surprise me. Fair play to Bamford. And whatever. I still think Leeds will be top 10.
What do you think Leeds' realistic expectations for the season? I know you talked about, top 10, but are they going to be looking and saying, "Hey, we're surviving, and that's,
No, I,
we're happy with that this
I
year"?
think they've got an I think Andrea owns them there and Victor, the recruitment guy. I think they're a lot more ambitious. They mightn't come out and say that, but I think
Hmm.
secretly they'll want to be top 12. And they probably plan top 12. If knowing those guys, they probably budgeted top 12, prize money and what they spend and whatever. They got the 49ers on board. No doubt in my mind they'll be top 10. And then probably thinking next year top six and then the following year top four.
Yeah.
So, it's all about planting the seeds. So, there's no way they would ever have thought, oh, fourth bottom and we're delighted. They would have been secretly like, that's a disaster. So they were never in danger of getting relegated. I've said it since the summer. They would be an absolute treat in the Premier League, and I stand by that. And great to see Sheffield United show some bollocks and they've stood by their manager and the players now, look, they're probably not going to stay up. They're so far back. But I'll tell you right now, if they get through, like they played both Manchester teams away, they've come away with 3 points, only lost to City 1-0. If they suddenly won three on the spin, you know, squeaky bum time down the bottom,
Well, you get some momentum.
that can happen. And it's almost like Wilder and the team were like, look, we're done. We're written off. We're planning for the championship. And amazing things can happen when you take it off.
Yeah, when you don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, correct. And look, you're right. Don't care about, look, we're down. But the players care. And
Yeah.
if they won 3 or 4 in a row, they'll care a whole lot more. So, fair credit to them and to the ownership of Sheffield United for keeping him and not getting rid of him.
Yeah, I love the fact they've kept him because, he's obviously got them where they are and they're still punching above their weight. And so many times you see like a manager getting sacked, 2 months into it.
Phil, he won promotion with Northampton from League Two.
Yeah.
Then won promotion from League One with Sheffield United. He then won promotion from the Championship. I mean, he was like manager of the year 3 out of 4 in all the leagues. He's gone through all the leagues. Then he stayed in the Premier League.
He's not suddenly a bad manager.
No, absolutely not. And he's a local guy who loves that club. So, they've obviously said, I would have done similar with Fergie. I would have said to him, I don't give a fuck. We're having the ride of our lives here. You lose every game. Let's just enjoy it, So some managers are unsackable. And our manager at our club, because of what we do and the way we work and whatever else, is one of them. Whether we have a shit result against Shrewsbury or, whatever else, we have massive belief in what our manager does, who he is, everything behind the club, because it just works so well. It's not just about winning promotions, and that's so much more important sometimes.
Now I wanted to talk a little bit about player fines, and this came up, after Frank Lampard got sacked. There was the fine board, if you will, that was whether it was leaked or whether it was just another attempt to try and make Frank Lampard look bad or whatever it was. I don't know. But it was kind of eye-opening where you see the list of fines that players get for, I think it ranged from a grand for being late to the gym to 20 grand for being late to training. Obviously, most players can't afford that level of fines when you're not in the Premier League. But is it common to have something like that at all levels?
Our club has it. I think Jono, our striker, collects all the fines because obviously him with his gold teeth smiling at you, you're paying up. So we have it. The manager lets the players do it. So it's not enforced by management, it's enforced by the players. And what it is it's being professional. It still baffles me to this day how players can be late for training or how players are answering phones. And, you're a professional. You show up to work, do your fucking job. I've never been late in my life to work. I've never been late tuning into this podcast with you.
I can say that. 5 minutes before every time we do anything, you're there.
Yeah, correct. I've never been late. It's who I am. So it baffles me still. And my kids, I'd be ashamed of them if they were late because I've instilled that in them as well. So the idea any player is late, for me, it's slapdash. So there should be a fucking fine. Same with yellow cards and red cards. The club will fine a player. That's not enforced by the players. That's enforced by the club. But all the other stuff that goes on at the training ground, that is normal. And as for the cheat sheet or the fine sheet with the numbers, yeah, at our level, it's probably 200 quid. At the Premier League, it'd be 20 grand, but you got players on 200 grand a week who are like, late, I'll write the check. Whatever. So, and I think what they do is they put all that money in a pot and have a day out at the end of the season. That's what they do. It doesn't go to the club. So I don't know why that shit's released because that's not Lampard. That's a thing that happens at every club up and down the country.
Yeah, I feel like they were just trying to get some more dirt on it.
I said months ago Lampard to get fired. I told everyone that. You don't have to have dirt on him. He wasn't good enough for Chelsea. That's just the way it was, and that's just the way it is. That's hard facts, hard truth.
Well, a couple of other things I just want to touch on towards the end of this section. First of all, your man Ivan Toney's got 19 goals now. He's one off his 20 and just keeps going from strength to strength. I'm sure that's one, keeping you happy from a deal perspective, and two, he's showing what he can do, and that demonstrates the ability that you can get in League One and play at League One.
Listen, they win promotion. The big chunk comes to us to help with our deficit this season, and if you get sold for 50 million, there'll be a massive chunk that'll pay for all our cash flow deficit next season. So that'll be even better business. So delighted for him. Brilliant. He's top class. He'll play for England now, I'm convinced.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the form striker in England. He'll definitely score 30 plus goals. I told everyone in the summer. No one listens. Maybe they think I talk too much. I don't know. I know my strikers. And he could have played for anyone in the Premier League, and he still could more.
And the last point I wanted to bring out, just because it's been in the news this week, is Leo Messi's £500 million contract, 4-year deal. Numbers like, I often look at American sports and the numbers that are in American sports, and, they've kind of been on a different level than most of what you would get in the UK or in football generally, like $300 million deals, but they go 10 years and just crazy deals.
Yeah, like in baseball, my dad's a big baseball fan. So when they get like a $300 million year, what people don't realize is 3 or 4 years of that can be long after the player's retired.
Yeah.
They're allowed to still pay a player. That's how they can wedge in the money. Obviously, in the NFL, you have a salary cap, but you get quarterbacks paid 30, 40 million. So usually the quarterback will take up 25% of the whole salary because that star player. When I saw Messi's contract, I was like, my God, no wonder that club's nearly bankrupt.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it.
Why didn't they let him go last summer? Like, if you were that bad financially as a club, what on earth did you fight to keep him for? I know he's a legend, but he's 34. You're paying him how much per year? I mean, he doesn't get 500 million a year, does he?
It was like 130 million. It worked out at something like that a year.
Like 3 million a week. I mean, come on. In the age of COVID, I mean, what are you doing? With all due respect, there's no human being worth that kind of money. And fair play to him. I would never criticize anyone.
I mean, he got the deal. Someone's going to give him the deal. You take it.
Maximize that and earn that kind of money. Fair play. I would never criticize anyone. And look, I'm sure he, does things for charity and helps in Argentina. But any football club paying that money is fucking ludicrous. I mean, it's ludicrous. No wonder sometimes our game is scoffed at for the money that's wasted and the deals that are done. You're never going to see a contract like that in football ever again.
You can only think from a Barcelona perspective that it's the law of big numbers, that their debts are so big that it was like a drop in the bucket. So they figured, why do we even fight it? What's another 100 million?
Yeah, no, I mean, we could be living in an era where one of the big top 10 clubs could go into administration. Mm-hmm. If this continues and, there are no fans for a while, I mean, we could be looking at that. There are clubs on the bubble. So big clubs. And obviously there's a lot of criticism about that. There's the Dell Fund money that's floating around has gone to 4 or 5 clubs in the Prem and the Champ, and some Champ clubs were moaning about, how can they all borrow from this fund? But look, that's life. You can borrow from whoever.
Yeah, I hate to say that. I mean, I think Bielsa was kind of saying about those that don't need the money can get the money. Well, unfortunately, that's what happens in personal life as well. It's unfortunately the way of the world.
You can go around a corner and find a loan shark who'll give you money with 20% Vic.
Yeah.
So, that's life. It's the same in football. You can borrow. But there's a few big clubs that have I've seen some of the figures and I've seen some of the accounts and I've seen, because I get stuff sent to me all the time. I got the other day an Italian club and a French club, and it was horrific, some of the stuff. So, yeah, there's some going to be big names. We'll hit the fan.
All right, well, on that note, we will take a break. We got some listener questions that we will come right back to in a moment or two. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hard Truth podcast. We're going to go straight into some listener questions. The first question that I actually have, and it was from Frank, and Frank asks, how has COVID actually physically impacted some of the players?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, taking a toll on some. I think you saw that with Chelsea. They had a couple of players who took a bit back. Newcastle as well. Newcastle had 2 or 3 players who really, and we actually had one as well. Jono had it. And, recently, obviously. And I'm sure you won't mind me saying that, but I think he struggled with sleeping and he's had fatigue. And I think people have been digging him out because he hasn't been maybe at his best the last few games, but it affects even athletes. Now, it's not affecting athletes mortality-wise. It's just there is an after effect. And I'm sure, I spoke to the doctors, it goes away. You know, it's not a long-term effect. It's just an immediate effect of maybe a bit of insomnia, a bit of fatigue. So there has been a bit of that, say, for us. I would say definitely at other clubs. And then there are some players who I know have had it and still run 10 miles in a day and had no effects whatsoever. They're
Yeah,
like,
just affects everyone differently.
it is bizarre, you know what I mean? And we know all the statistics and we know, the age groups and the statistics. And then you got Steve Cottrell, God bless him. I think he's in his 50s.
Mm.
And he got it really bad and ended up in ICU. But I think he's on the mend, hopefully, and he comes out. And then you have Barry, who's 75, who had it. And he stayed in bed for 2 weeks and, now he's fighting fit. So
Yeah.
I guess it's really, really, it depends. And no one has any we do know the mortality statistics and we know the risks and everything else, but I guess it affects everyone a little bit differently. You know what I mean? So I said to you before that I've known now the numbers. I've known 36 people with COVID, since this has started, and thank God, all 36 are still alive. And some of those have been in their 70s and 80s. Some of those have been in their 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those have been players. I've known 6-7 players who had it, and then I've had 2 friends with 2 children who've committed suicide. So there's the flip to it. So during COVID, and I'm not trying to downplay COVID. I'm just trying to say that's my reality
Yeah.
during this process. So, and I guess we want to get to the point where we don't know anyone who's like COVID anymore or had knee issues. So, that's where we are.
All right, I have a question from Carl, and Carl asked about gentlemen's agreements in signings. So he cited Robert Snodgrass's transfer from West Ham to West Brom, where there was a gentleman's agreement to stop him playing for West Brom. But because that was disclosed, it seems like both clubs are now in trouble with the Premier League.
Allardyce dropped a clanger. I
Yeah.
think he knew what he was doing because it was West Ham they were playing. So I don't know what the fuck he was playing at, because he would have known. So that was really stupid from him. It reminded me of years and years ago. We signed a player from Barnet called Liam Hatch.
Mm-hmm.
We paid 50 grand for him. He was like a target man. And I always remember the agreement at the time was with Barnet, if I can recollect, with Baz and Tony who owned Barnet, that Hatchie wouldn't play against Barnet when we played them. We played them a week later. But someone forgot to tell the manager. And he brought Hatch in the 85th minute, and Hatch scored the winner. And I'm sat there and I didn't know about the agreement. It was only when Baz told me, because Tony was fucking spitting bullets. Left the place, not a happy man. But I think Baz had forgotten to tell the manager, but it was basically a gentleman's agreement. You know what I mean? So this goes on in football all the time. And it's only right, I guess. And I've no problem with that. And I felt bad at the time. And if that was now, I'd make sure, look, we abide by the agreement. I know it's unethical and it's not legal within the EFL rules, but everyone does it.
Mm. And it's within loans, it's a lot more commonplace. I mean, it is allowed within loans, isn't it?
You're not allowed to play a player.
You're not allowed to.
No, like Broom for Burton couldn't play against us. That's legally not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
I know around the world in Europe it is. I think people have played for their team in the Champions League. I want to say Coutinho played against Barca for Bayern Munich. So it is allowed in Europe, but I know in our league it's not allowed.
I have a question from Dale, and Dale is a Doncaster supporter. He asks, what's your thoughts about how Doncaster do business? And the context for this is we sold Ben Whiteman for reported 1.6 to 1.7 million to Preston. And I feel that our board perhaps aren't getting the most value for money when we're selling, and also concerned that we have very few players contracted beyond the end of the season.
I think their model works fine. And I think, the board are quite happy because the board probably don't have to put money in. I think they run a really, really self-sufficient club. It's miraculous every year what they do. I think Darren Moore doesn't get credit. We speak about, black managers in football and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't get the credit. He doesn't get the press for the job he's done at Doncaster. And there's no doubt in my mind he could get a championship job or a big job. And no disrespect to Doncaster, but he should be a name in there every time there's a big job coming up. Phenomenal coach at West Brom, I believe. And then obviously
he was.
First job at Donny, he's done great because he's losing his best players over and over. Marquis last year, the year before, Ben Whiteman was the best midfielder in our league. Then you got Jack Taylor, our player. And yeah, was he worth more? Absolutely. Outside of a pandemic, Whiteman's a £3 million sale. But I'm sure Donny you've got to sell on. And if Preston sell Whiteman in a couple of years, they'll get more money. So it was good business. But since they've sold their best player, I think they've won 3 or 4 in a row.
Right, they're doing pretty well, aren't they?
Credit to Darren Moore because he recruits good loans. And yes, they're probably right about they don't have loads of players contracted to the club. But hey, they're winning. Hey, they're one of the favourites for winning League One. So don't knock it because it obviously works for them. And we are in a pandemic. We're in unprecedented times where it's too easy to criticize any club for what they do at the moment, and all clubs should be immune from criticism because we're in such bizarre circumstances.
Yeah, nobody knows really the circumstances behind each individual club and their cash flow and everything.
Horrendous. I mean, it's horrendous. Everyone's cash flow is horrendous. So if Doncaster are at a point where they've got a load of loans for next to nothing, their wage bill is really low, their overheads are really low, they're bringing in a couple of million in the player sales, they're in a really healthy place, which means they're not a club in danger. In the pandemic, there were loads of clubs in danger. Not only are they not a club in danger, they're a club thriving. So it is what it is. Fair play to them.
Well, I have a question that we have from producer Henry, who's a Bolton fan, but also from Andrew and Daniel. We haven't had this many questions
Here we
on
go.
one player, as you can probably imagine what's coming.
Maddison.
Yeah. So what do you make of Marcus dropping down to League Two?
Yeah, he is sublimely talented, but that's on him. He could play as high as he wants. I've always said that. That's down to the player. That's a player who will look back in his career in years to come and regret the fact he didn't sprinkle his magic at the top, because he has the ability, he has the talent. He's a maverick. Maybe the other side he doesn't have is the applying it, day in day out, and that's on him. That's on the footballer. Do you know what I mean? If they don't make the most of their talents, so good luck to him at Bolton. If they get him right, it will help Bolton. If it doesn't go right, he's got an issue next summer. It didn't work with Charlton. I didn't think it would with Lee Boyer and that personality. Marcus is a very specific type of person, needs to be managed a certain way. Darren Ferguson could always manage him. Other managers couldn't. Grant McCann could for a while. Then he got him at Hull and he couldn't. So that's on the player. Only the player can answer for that. He's still young. There's still a chance for him to go again. So who knows? He could get it right at Bolton. Bolton sign him permanently. They go back to back. They end in the championship. Marcus is a hero. That's how it can change in football.
Yeah. Yeah, I know as a City fan, whenever I saw Marcus playing, it's there are very few people with that amount of talent that I've seen play against us in, League One, League Two.
Yeah.
So he obviously has it.
Has to cut out all the other crap and just apply his ability, and his work ethic and all of that. If he got that right, he'd be untouchable. So good luck to him. Nothing to do with me anymore. I'm not really interested in talking about it on Twitter.
I have a question from Gareth. Gareth says, first of all, he asks, are you the only Irish owner of a professional football club in England? And if so, or if there isn't many others of you around, why do you think there hasn't been more investment from Ireland?
Jeez, I don't know. Actually, it's a good question. Someone else out there can answer for me. I don't know. Am I the only paddy out there? You know what I mean? That's owning a club. I have no idea. And I've no idea when more and more people don't invest from Ireland. There's a lot of wealthy people in Ireland. It's always been a pet project of mine. Down the line, I would buy an Irish club because I am Irish. I'd love to maybe, if the FAI, ever wanted me involved to help with Irish football, I'm all ears, because I think, my experience in football might be an asset to them. But again, I don't want to play politics, but it would be something I would definitely be open to.
And I have another question from Gareth, and it's something we've touched on before, I think, on the show, but just kind of ask it again because it's relevant with it being the transfer deadline. Why would a club keep the fee paid for a player as undisclosed?
No idea. I'm personally all for transparency. I have no problem telling people fees. More often than not, when we buy a player or sell a player, it's the other clubs who don't want us disclosing it. So I've got no issue whatsoever like talking about fees, because you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Some people might want to hold a fee against you if you don't do well down the line with a player. Who cares? That's let's be transparent. Let's make all of that information public knowledge to everyone. It might be another reason as well that there wasn't that many fees paid in January as well, because so many people were basically getting help from the Premier League. It wouldn't look great if people were spending silly money on fees during January. We forgot to mention that, so that's something to look into as well. But I hate the undisclosed thing. I'm perfectly happy telling people all the ins and outs of a deal.
Yeah, and it's interesting in other sports, like over here in the States, again, everything is public.
Agent fee, transfer fee, trade fee, what you give up, what you get back. I love that. And I think it should be the same in our business. Right down to the agents who you pay, signing on, fucking everything. Let's make it transparent. In the age of COVID and everything coming through this pandemic, I think it's the time. We could do it.
Well, I have a last couple of questions here from Alex Ramsden. One a football question, one actually a business question. So the football question, Alex is a AFC Wimbledon fan. and he says you've probably seen the news that they recently sacked their manager. Who would you recommend for them? And kind of what kind of manager would you recommend somebody like an AFC Wimbledon go for? Experience, somebody up and coming. Where would your thoughts be?
I saw Pardew was linked with the job yesterday.
Really, I didn't see that.
Yeah, obviously he's got a lot of experience. I'm not sure it's the right fit. I mean, they've got a great new stadium. They're obviously struggling, but I think they can get out of that. It's a good job. And I think, possibly another Darren Moore coming down from the Prem, a coach. Obviously I think Blackpool went down that route with a Liverpool youth coach. Did Fleetwood do the same recently? No, they went
with Simon Grayson.
They were Simon Grayson, but I think they were looking at talking to a younger coach at the Prem club. So, only the people at Wimbledon will know what they want. I dare say they'll probably maybe get someone in to do a caretaker shift till the end of the season, possibly. There's 20 games to go. But that's a good job. And with their stadium and everything else, that could be a juicy job for someone to get the team. So who knows? There's a lot of good unemployed football coaches and managers out there. Yeah, I've got no idea. I mean, you could be looking for a manager in the summer. So the market could be quite tasty in the summer for managers. There could be a few clubs going after the same type of manager. Who knows?
All right.
Well, and speaking of the business pod, yes. So me and you are recording the first episode. And again, for people who want to subscribe, it's hardtruthbusiness.com. And we're going to take questions and go through stuff in the first pod for the business. What was the email address to send in for people out there?
So the email address we're using right now is the same as the football. It's contact@hardtruthfootball.com.
Okay, very good. So email your questions in. We're going to do the first business pod. That'll be out in the next couple of weeks.
Yep, we're going to record it next week.
Yeah, it will be free for the first episode, and then it will go to a subscriber-based system. So far, we've had over 500 sign-ups. We're going to get to the magic figure of 1,000. So again, go to hardtruthbusiness.com.
Yep, add your name to the list.
Add your name to the list, fill it in. This will be a podcast you will not want to miss.
And so segue into a question that we have, a business question this week to wrap up the show. And that is, again, from Alex. If you're starting or developing a business, how important is it to be passionate and really enjoy what you do rather than just following the money?
That's a brilliant question. And I'm not going to answer it till next week's first episode.
All right, we'll keep that. I've got some opinions on that one as well.
Yeah, you're going to have to tune in to get myself and Philip's insight into that question. And we'll go into detail on that next week. And for those who don't know about the business podcast, it's going to cover all aspects of life, business, success, failure. We're going to talk about investing in businesses. I might invest in some people's businesses if they come up with the right pitch. Dragon's Den pitch as well.
I'm going to start pitching you then as soon as we get inside that business.
Yeah, as well. And we're going to do the pros and cons. So we're going to hopefully every episode, someone's going to send in a business plan and we'll dissect it and talk about whether it's a good one or a bad one. This is something you won't want to miss for the small price of like 15 quid a month. It will be invaluable if you're looking to improve your life, your business, everything. So get on that hardtruthbusiness.com. and sign up and subscribe.
We're really wanting to make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible because, you look at how much money you would typically spend on business coaches and, I do in my business and it's, in the thousands. It's not in the tens or the hundreds.
You're getting my experience. You're getting my life, what I've done. You're getting you. You're going to talk about procurement. You're going to talk about your experiences. You're a guy who's gone from Britain to emigrated to America through jobs, married an American. There's a success in that story as well. So we're going to cover all those aspects of it, so much more. We're going to be doing Zoom calls with people. We're going to be doing conferences. We're going to be doing seminars. We're going to be doing books that people get discounts when they sign up to subscribe. So there's so much more to this. And like you just said there, people would think nothing of spending $2,000 on a 3-day sales seminar or some life coach course and all that crap. And I've never been big into this. So what we're doing, trust me, this is a bargain. So tell your friends, get on hardtruthbusiness.com and sign up now because we are limited in this to 1,000 people at the start.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in. You made it through after your night of drinking and jet lag.
Professional.
Check the box.
Hardcore.
Now you can go back to sleep.
Listen, I'll be on the coffee now and I'm back to my day job. Baz is just on the phone, so I'll find out what he wants. Mm-hmm. So I bid you all farewell. Thank you for listening today, guys. See you next week.
Yeah, talk to you all next week. Thank you.